Anytime that I talk about the Holocaust, I always ask the audience, whether it is high school freshmen or people in the community or a group of teachers, I always ask that the audience, first, remember those who died. Second, honor those who have survived. And third, and maybe the most important, is to think about the obligations of the living, of us, the obligations that we have. How do we go forward after hearing this story? Engraved on the walls of the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. are the words, "You are my witnesses." And those are ancient words. Those are words from the Hebrew Scriptures. But they apply to us right now, here tonight. Once we know this story, our perceptions of humanity are forever changed. As Jeannie so kindly said, I have been a teacher at Castle High School for 27 years. Every time I tell my students, well, I'm going to be gone. I have to give a speech tonight. They've asked me to talk. And they always say, well, why did they ask you? And I said, I don't know, but I am happy that they did, and I'm really happy to be here. I teach this subject with great humility and with great trepidation. When I first started this, and I've been better lately, but I always say, and I always think to myself, who am I to talk about these things? I'm not Jewish. I've never experienced the things that the people experienced in those times. Who am I to talk about this? And then I looked around, though, and I found that we aren't talking about it enough in our schools and in our lives. We have to remember what has happened here. I do it with the greatest respect for both the people and the facts. And I do this with the greatest care for the victims, the survivors, and for my students. Another part of my trepidation and my fear is I say, who am I to break their hearts? Who am I to tell them about some of the things that can happen to human beings? It is hard. The events and the results are so devastating that the temptations to forget are very real. But we must know and we must remember. We need to understand what we are capable of, both the best and the worst that we can be. And that's what keeps me going, is that not only have I seen the worst that human beings can be, I've also seen the best that we can be. Those are the stories I want my students to know. Those are the stories I want you to know. Those are the stories we need to remember as we go forward. This year, I have 130 ninth graders, all honors level students. I'm so fortunate. I just am blessed to be able to go there every day. But I took an informal poll at the beginning of our Holocaust unit this year. And out of 130 students who've had every advantage, 80% of them did not know the word anti-Semitism. They did not know it. They'd never heard it. My students, they were just unaware that there was a word for prejudice against Jewish people. They're pretty much unaware that there are biases against other religions or other cultures other than their own. My students, as I say, have never experienced prejudice. They've never experienced having their holy days ignored in the general culture. It just never occurs to them that everyone is not the same as they are. It never occurs to them that people pray differently and live differently and think differently, but we're still all good people. It just never occurs to them. Sometimes they assume that all the really good people are the ones that agree with them. And so I want to shake them out of that, not unkindly, but just open the world to all the rest of the people that are also good, wonderful people and do things differently. I think that once that we know each other, and it becomes impossible to fear one another. When it's prejudice and discrimination start, it's all based on fear. Those people, once we hear those words, be careful. be careful. Well, my career in teaching started 27 years ago, but my career as a Holocaust educator started in 1996, which is how many years ago? 16? Thanks, math people, thank you. Every year I have the opportunity to go to a conference with 1,000 other English teachers, and we spend a week talking to authors and publishers and educational publishers. We hear speakers, we go to sessions. It's just the most wonderful week of the year. I talk to all these people that also are in love with the profession, and we go and we learn. One of the speakers in 1996 was a Holocaust survivor. And as I filled out my program, I thought, well, that'll be interesting. I don't know a whole lot about that. That will be interesting. And so I went. And I walked up to the room. It was at the Hilton in Chicago, that little hotel on the south side, you know, the gigantic place. I walked to the room, and it was full. And there were people kind of standing outside, and the room was full, and the people were saying, no, no, no more people, the fire marshal will get us. And I must have looked just pathetic, because the girl finally at the door said, if you're willing to sit on the floor, you can go ahead and go in. So I went in, and I ended up sitting about there, and the speaker was here. And the speaker was Gerda Klein, who wrote the memoir, All But My Life. I see you shaking your head. You've read this. It's a life changer. That day changed my life, absolutely changed my life. I know people say that all the time, but it truly, truly did. I sat there and I listened, and it was almost as if she was speaking to me, but everybody in the room felt that way. I learned the things that had happened to her. She was 15 years old in 1939, just the age that my students are. My happy-go-lucky students that are worried about the next test or the next ball game. At 15, her world was turned upside down. I learned that she lost her home, her family, her secure sense of the world. Their friends turned their backs on them. Her father's business was stolen from him because he was Jewish. They were moved first to the basement of her home, then to a ghetto, then to several labor camps, and finally, she was sent on a death march. On a cold January day, 3,000 girls left the camp, and 5 months later, 120 of them made it to Czechoslovakia. And many more died after they arrived. Also, she watched as a fine, upstanding factory owner purchased her and the other girls from her transport for about $1 apiece as slave laborers. A man who probably said, I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't participate. But he did. He bought these girls for $1 apiece. Also, in the pages of this book, I met a Nazi guard, Frau Kugler, who, as Gerda said, sounded and looked like a bulldog, but who turned out to be kind and respectful and like a guardian angel for the girls when her supervisors weren't looking. She literally saved Gerda's life more than once, and she always treated the girls with respect and care. She called them by name. She gave them all the leeway she could when her supervisors weren't watching. She put her life in danger every minute to take care of her girls. Gerda says in her award-winning film, Oscar-winning film, Frau Kugler pinned a lie to the lips of all those who said there was nothing they could do. Here she was, a Nazi guard, and she saved those girls. I also read about a generous gift of one small smashed raspberry that restored Gerda's will to live. Do you remember that incident? Restored her will to live when she was at the end of her rope. And so when we read the worst, we also read the best about ourselves. this book shows us that we never know how our actions affect the lives of others in both positive and negative ways. Those kind gestures, and she has never forgotten them. But what I saw, rather than heard or read that day, was a person, a fellow human being who was standing there talking to me. And I realized that Gerda Klein is a woman who's full of gratitude, who is full of love for her fellow human beings. And I was left saying, how did that happen? How has she gone through what she's gone through and turned out the way she has? She cares so much about young people and what they face in their world. She was one of the first people that the officials at Columbine High School called when that awful shooting occurred, because she connects with young people so thoroughly and so well. She never says to them, look what I went through, or if I can do it, you can too. She never says that. She pays attention to their lives and their pain. She asks us, when we hear her speak, she asks us to step up and to do our best, to pay attention to the needs of our fellow human beings. She talks about walking through the frozen night, seeing families inside their warm houses as the girls marched on the death march. And she says, if only one person would have noticed, would have seen us, but everybody turned their heads. She asked the teachers in the room that day, this is where she got me. Well, she got me when she first opened her mouth, I think. She said to the teachers in the room, you are the bridge to the time that I shall not see, and you need to take the story to your students. And that's why I do these things, and that's why I'm out at USC working on lesson plans and curriculum, but I'll get to that later.